The thunder rolled across Manhattan like a warning, but Rebecca Thompson was already soaked to the bone. She pressed her art portfolio tighter against her chest, trying to protect the watercolor paintings inside from the relentless October rain. Her worn sneakers splashed through puddles as she hurried down Fifth Avenue. Desperate to reach the small coffee shop where she worked part-time at 22, Rebecca had learned that life rarely went according to plan. The daughter of a single mother who cleaned office buildings at night, she had grown up understanding that dreams required more than hope. They needed determination, sacrifice, and sometimes a little bit of luck. Today felt like one of those days when luck was in short supply, a collision that changes everything. The brass bells above the door of Sunrise Cafe chimed as Rebecca burst through the entrance, water dripping from her honey-colored hair. She paused for a moment, catching her breath and surveying the warm interior filled with the rich aroma of freshly ground coffee beans. The place was packed with people seeking shelter from the storm. As she made her way toward the counter, balancing her portfolio and trying to squeeze between the crowded tables, disaster struck. A tall figure rose from a corner booth at the exact moment Rebecca passed by. The collision was inevitable. Her portfolio went flying, paintings scattering across the cafe floor like fallen leaves. Hot coffee splashed everywhere, and Rebecca found herself looking up into the most startling pair of green eyes she had ever seen. "I am so sorry," the stranger said, his voice carrying a slight warmth that seemed to cut through her embarrassment. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees. Gathering her scattered artwork with careful hands, the stranger with kind eyes, Rebecca knelt beside him, her cheeks burning with humiliation. "Please don't worry about it. I should have been more careful." She reached for a watercolor painting of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. But the stranger was already examining it with genuine interest. "This is incredible," he said, holding the painting up to catch the light. "The way you captured the reflection in the water is amazing." Rebecca blinked in surprise. Most people barely glanced at her art, treating it like a hobby rather than serious work. "Thank you. I painted that last month from the promenade." The man stood up, extending his hand to help her rise. He was tall, probably 6'2", dark hair that looked like he had run his fingers through it, and a face that belonged in a magazine. His clothes were simple but clearly expensive, a navy sweater and dark jeans that fit him perfectly. "I'm William," he said, still holding her hand a moment longer than necessary. "And I think I owe you a new coffee and probably dry cleaning for your paintings." "Rebecca," she replied, surprised by the strength and warmth of his handshake. "And really, it was my fault. I was rushing because I'm late for my shift." More than just coffee, William glanced around the busy cafe, then back at Rebecca's name tag that read barista in training. A slow smile spread across his face. "You work here?" Rebecca nodded, suddenly self-conscious about her damp hair and coffee-stained apron. "Part-time. I'm also taking art classes at the community college." She wasn't sure why. She felt compelled to explain herself to the stranger, but something about his presence made her want to share. "Would you mind if I stayed while you work?" William asked, settling back into his booth. "I'd like to see more of your art. I promise I'll try not to cause any more collisions. For the next 3 hours?" As Rebecca served customers and cleaned tables, William remained in his corner booth. He had spread her paintings carefully across the table, studying each one with an attention that made her heart race. Every time she glanced his way, he was either looking at her artwork or watching her work with an expression of quiet fascination, discovering. Rebecca joined William at his table, sliding into the seat across from him with a fresh cup of coffee. Up close, she could see that his green eyes held flecks of gold. And there was something about his smile that made her feel like she was the only person in the room. "Tell me about this one," William said, pointing to a painting of children playing in a fire hydrant spray on a hot summer day. The scene was alive with motion and joy. It's painted in vibrant yellows and blues. "I saw that in my neighborhood last August," Rebecca explained, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "The kids were so happy, so free. I wanted to capture that feeling of pure joy." She paused, then added quietly, "I paint what makes people feel something." William leaned forward, his eyes never leaving her face. "What makes you feel something?" The question caught Rebecca off guard. She had spent so much time thinking about other people's emotions that she rarely examined her own. I guess hope makes me feel the most. The idea that tomorrow could be different, better. Hope, William repeated softly, as if testing the word. I can't remember the last time someone talked to me about hope. A world apart as the afternoon wore on. Their conversation flowed like water finding its path. Rebecca found herself telling William about her dreams of having her own art studio, of maybe teaching children to paint, of showing her work in a real gallery someday. She spoke about her grandmother Rose, who had raised her mother and still sent $5 in every birthday card, despite living on Social Security. William listened with an intensity that made Rebecca feel heard in a way she had never experienced. He asked thoughtful questions about her technique, her inspiration, her plans for the future. But when she asked about his work, his answers became vague. I'm in technology, he said, running his hand through his hair. Problem solving mostly. It pays the bills. He seemed uncomfortable discussing himself, quickly steering the conversation back to her art. As closing time approached, Rebecca began cleaning up her paintings. The storm had passed, leaving the streets gleaming under the streetlights. William stood to leave but hesitated at the door. Rebecca, he said, turning back to face her. Would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? Somewhere we can talk without the risk of coffee disasters? Her heart skipped a beat. This gorgeous, mysterious man wanted to see her again. I'd like that, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. A promise of tomorrow's. William wrote his phone number on a napkin. Rebecca noticed his hands. They were strong and well cared for, with calluses that suggested he worked with them despite his expensive clothes. When he handed her the napkin, their fingers brushed, sending an electric current up her arm. Thank you for today, William said, his voice soft. Meeting you was the best thing that's happened to me in a very long time. After he left, Rebecca stood in the empty cafe holding the napkin with his number. She had no idea that William Sterling was one of the youngest billionaires in America, that his technology company had revolutionized online security, or that his net worth exceeded the GDP of small countries. All she knew was that for the first time in her life, she had met someone who looked at her art and saw not just pictures, but windows into her soul. Someone who listened when she talked about hope as if it were the most precious thing in the world. As she walked home through the rain-washed streets, Rebecca's portfolio felt lighter in her arms. Tomorrow would bring new possibilities, and for once, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her luck was beginning to change. The city lights reflected in the puddles around her feet, creating a masterpiece of hope and possibility that even her artist's eye could appreciate. Sometimes the most beautiful things emerged from the most unexpected storms. 3 weeks had passed since that rainy afternoon collision. Rebecca's life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. William had kept his promise about dinner, and then another dinner, and then long walks through Central Park, where they talked about everything from childhood memories to philosophical questions. About art and meaning, tonight was different. Tonight, Rebecca stood in the pristine white space of the Meridian Gallery in Chelsea, watching strangers examine her paintings with critical eyes. Her art professor, Mrs. Chen, had somehow managed to get Rebecca included in a group show featuring emerging local artists. It was her first real exhibition, and her stomach churned with nervous energy. She smoothed down her black dress, the only formal outfit she owned, purchased secondhand for tonight. Despite her nerves, she felt proud. 6 of her paintings hung on these walls, each one telling a story of hope, struggle, and beauty found in unexpected places. When two worlds collide, the gallery filled with an eclectic mix of art students, local collectors, and curious passersby. Rebecca had invited William, though she wasn't sure he would come. Their relationship existed in a bubble of coffee shops, park benches, and quiet restaurants. She had never seen him in a formal setting. At 7:30, she spotted him near the entrance, and her breath caught in her throat. Gone were the casual sweaters and jeans. William wore a charcoal gray suit that looked like it had been tailored specifically for his tall frame. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and he moved through the crowd with a confidence that seemed to part the room around him. When their eyes met across the gallery, his face broke into that warm smile she had come to treasure. He made his way through the crowd, stopping briefly to speak with Mrs. Chen, who looked surprised and impressed by something he said. "You clean up nice," Rebecca said when he reached her, trying to hide her nervousness behind humor. "Not as nice as your art looks on these walls," William replied, taking her hand and squeezing it gently. "Rebecca, this is incredible. I'm so proud of you." The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight with emotion. In the 3 weeks they had known each other, William had become her biggest supporter, encouraging her to submit to the show when she felt too intimidated to try. A different kind of attention as the evening progressed. Rebecca noticed something strange happening. People kept approaching William, their voices dropping to respectful whispers. Art collectors who had barely glanced at her work suddenly showed intense interest after speaking with him. A prominent gallery owner handed William his business card with the kind of deference usually reserved for celebrities. "William," Rebecca said during a quiet moment, "I feel like everyone here knows you." "Who exactly did you tell Mrs. Chen you were?" William's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. "I just mentioned I was interested in supporting emerging artists." Word travels fast in art circles, but Rebecca sensed there was more to the story. She had grown up reading people's expressions out of necessity, learning to distinguish between genuine kindness and hidden agendas. Something in William's eyes suggested he was holding back a significant truth. The grandmother's wisdom. The next morning, Rebecca sat in her grandmother Rose's tiny kitchen in Queens, sharing coffee and homemade biscuits while recounting the previous evening. Rose Thompson was 78 years old, with silver hair always pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that missed nothing. "This William boy sounds too good to be true," Rose said, stirring honey into her coffee. "Rich men don't usually spend 3 weeks courting poor girls without wanting something." "Grandma Rose is not rich," Rebecca protested. "He works in technology, but he lives simply. He takes the subway, he tips generously, but not excessively, and he actually listens when I talk." Rose raised an eyebrow. "Child, I've been alive long enough to recognize expensive clothes when I see them. That suit you described costs more than most people make in 6 months. And the way those gallery folks treated him like royalty. That tells a story." Rebecca shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Deep down, she had noticed these things too, but she had chosen to ignore them. William made her feel seen and valued in a way no one ever had before. The thought that he might be hiding something significant from her was too painful to fully acknowledge. The penthouse revelation 2 days later, William invited Rebecca to his apartment for dinner. He had cooked for her before, simple meals in what she assumed was a modest downtown loft. But when the taxi dropped her off in front of a gleaming 40-story building on the Upper East Side, her heart began to race. The doorman greeted William by name, and the elevator required a special key to access the top floor. When the doors opened directly into his apartment, Rebecca felt like she had stepped into a different universe, floor to ceiling. Windows offered a breathtaking view of the city's skyline. The furniture was modern and clearly expensive, but arranged with taste rather than ostentation. Original artwork covered the walls, including pieces by artists Rebecca recognized from her art history textbooks. "William," she said slowly, turning to face him in the center of the vast living room, "what exactly do you do for a living?" He had been dreading this moment for weeks. "I should have told you sooner. I was afraid it would change how you saw me. Tell me what." William ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she had learned meant he was nervous. "I'm the founder and CEO of Sterling Security Systems. We develop cybersecurity software for major corporations and government agencies." Rebecca stared at him. "Processing this information? And that means what exactly?" "It means I'm worth about $3 billion. The weight of truth's the number hit Rebecca like a physical blow. She sank onto the leather couch, trying to make sense of everything. $3 billion. "You're a billionaire. I know how this looks," William said, sitting across from her carefully. "I know you must think I was playing some kind of game, but Rebecca, everything between us has been real. More real than anything I've experienced in years." Rebecca's mind raced through every interaction they had shared. The way he always insisted on paying for meals, claiming it was only fair since he had asked her out. His vague answers about his work. The expensive clothes she had noticed but rationalized away. "Why didn't you tell me?" She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I wanted you to know me, not my bank account. Do you have any idea how rare it is to meet someone who talks to me about hope and dreams instead of investment opportunities? Someone who shows me her art because she wants to share her soul, not because she thinks I might buy it. Understanding the divide, William stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. I've been wealthy my entire adult life. People approach me with calculated smiles and rehearsed conversations. Women date me for the lifestyle I can provide, not for who I am underneath it all. Rebecca joined him at the window, seeing their reflection in the glass. They looked like two people from completely different worlds, which she was beginning to realize they were. But you let me worry about money in front of you, she said, remembering conversations about her student loans and part-time job struggles. You watched me stress about paying for art supplies while sitting on billions of dollars. I didn't want to fix your problems with money because that would have changed our entire dynamic. I wanted to support your dreams, not fund them. There's a difference. Rebecca understood the distinction, but it still stung. I feel like such a fool. All those times I insisted on paying my share, all those conversations about budgeting and saving, you must have thought I was naive. I thought you were remarkable, William said, turning to face her fully. I watched you create beauty, despite financial constraints. I saw you work 2 jobs while taking classes and still find time to paint. That kind of determination and grace under pressure is something money can't buy. A choice to make. They spent the rest of the evening talking through the implications of this revelation. William showed her his home office, where multiple computer screens displayed real-time data from his company's operations. He explained how he had started the business in college, developing security software that eventually revolutionized online banking protection. I never wanted to be defined by the money, he said as they sat on his terrace overlooking Central Park, but I also never wanted to lie to someone I was falling in love with. The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either had mentioned love, though Rebecca had been feeling it growing stronger each day. I need time to think, Rebecca said finally. This changes everything, and I need to understand what it means for us. William nodded, though she could see the fear in his eyes. I understand. But Rebecca, please remember that my feelings for you have nothing to do with what I own. They have everything to do with who you are. As the taxi carried her back to her small apartment in Brooklyn, Rebecca stared out at the glittering city skyline. Somewhere up there in a penthouse worth more than she could comprehend was a man who claimed to love her for her authenticity and determination. The question that would keep her awake that night was simple but profound. Could 2 people from such different worlds build something real together? Or was she just a fascinating diversion for a billionaire who could afford any adventure he wanted? Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, Rebecca allowed herself to feel both the wonder and the terror of loving someone whose world was so far from her own that it might as well have been on another planet entirely. Autumn leaves had turned golden and red in Central Park, creating a tapestry of color that reminded Rebecca why she loved painting so much. 3 weeks had passed since William's revelation about his wealth, and those weeks had been filled with deep conversations, careful observations. In moments of startling clarity, Rebecca had made her decision. But tonight would test everything she thought she knew about herself and about love. William had invited her to a private rooftop dinner at his penthouse, promising they would talk about their future without any more secrets between them. She stood in front of her small bathroom mirror, applying the lipstick her grandmother Rose had bought her for special occasions. The deep red color made her feel more confident, more ready to face whatever this evening would bring. The rooftop sanctuary when Rebecca arrived at William's building. She was surprised to find him waiting in the lobby instead of having her come up alone. He wore a simple black button-down shirt and dark jeans, looking more like the man she had first met in the coffee shop than the billionaire CEO she now knew him to be. I thought we could walk up together, he said, offering her his arm. I have something special planned for tonight. The elevator ride to the top floor felt different this time. Instead of the nervous energy that had characterized their recent interactions, Rebecca felt a sense of calm determination. She had spent 3 weeks thinking about what she wanted, and tonight she would be completely honest about it. When the elevator doors opened, William led her not into his apartment, but to a door marked roof access. They climbed one more flight of stairs, and Rebecca gasped when they emerged onto the rooftop. A night under the stars, William had transformed the rooftop into an intimate outdoor dining room. String lights created a warm canopy overhead, while candles flickered on a small table set for two. The skyline of Manhattan stretched out around them like a glittering jewel box. But the real beauty was in the thoughtful details. A small easel held one of Rebecca's paintings. The watercolor of children playing in the fire hydrant that had been among those scattered during their first meeting. Beside it sat a bouquet of sunflowers, her favorite flower, which she had mentioned weeks ago in passing. "William, this is incredible," Rebecca said, genuinely moved by the effort he had put into creating this space. "I wanted tonight to be about us," he said, pulling out her chair. No distractions, no pretense. Just Rebecca and William. Figuring out if we can build something real together, dinner conversations, and deep truths. As they shared the meal William had prepared himself, their conversation flowed with the ease that had characterized their relationship from the beginning. He told her about his childhood in Connecticut, how his parents had divorced when he was 12, leaving him to shuttle between two homes that felt more like hotels than family. Spaces. "I think that's why I threw myself into technology so early," William said, refilling her wine glass. "Computers made sense in a way that people didn't. They responded predictably to input. There were no hidden agendas or emotional manipulations." Rebecca listened carefully, understanding now why authenticity meant so much to him. But people aren't computers. We're messy and complicated, and we change our minds. "Exactly," William said, his green eyes reflecting the candlelight. "And for the longest time, I thought that was a flaw in humanity rather than its greatest strength." Rebecca set down her fork, studying his face. "What changed your mind?" "Meeting you? Watching you create art that captures the messy, complicated, beautiful reality of being human. Seeing how you approach every challenge with this incredible combination of pragmatism and hope, the moment of truth after dinner." They moved to a comfortable seating area William had arranged near the rooftop's edge. The city sparkled below them, but Rebecca found herself focused entirely on the man beside her. This was the moment she had been preparing for. The conversation that would determine their future. "William," she began, her voice steady despite the importance of what she was about to say. "I need to tell you something, and it might change how you see me." He turned to face her fully, his expression serious but encouraging. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." Rebecca took a deep breath, gathering her courage. For 3 weeks, she had wrestled with whether to share this part of herself, whether it mattered in the context of their relationship. Tonight, she had decided that complete honesty was the only foundation on which real love could be built. "I'm still a virgin," she said quietly, the words hanging in the air between them like a confession of the deepest kind. Understanding the weight of words, William's expression didn't change. But Rebecca saw something shift in his eyes. Not disappointment or surprise, but a deeper understanding of who she was and why she had been so careful about their physical relationship. "Can I ask why?" he said gently, his voice free of judgment. Rebecca had anticipated this question and had thought carefully about her answer. "It's not religious reasons, if that's what you're wondering. It's just that I've never met anyone who felt worth that kind of vulnerability. Physical intimacy has always seemed like it should mean something profound. It's not just be a step in a relationship timeline." She looked out at the city lights, gathering her thoughts. "I've dated before, but those relationships always felt like they were missing something essential. The men I knew saw me as Rebecca, the struggling artist. Someone to have fun with, but not someone to build a future with." The depth of connection. William was quiet for a long moment, processing not just her words, but the trust she was showing by sharing something so personal. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Rebecca, the fact that you've waited for someone who deserves that gift from you tells me everything I need to know about your character. It tells me you understand that real intimacy isn't just physical. It's emotional, intellectual, spiritual. He took her hand, intertwining their fingers. I've been with women who were with me for the wrong reasons. The physical connection was there, but the emotional intimacy was hollow. What we have is the opposite of that. Rebecca felt tears gathering in her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. She had been afraid that her inexperience would seem naive or unappealing to someone. As worldly as William plans for the future, there's something else I need to tell you, William said, his voice taking on a different tone. I've been thinking about our conversation 3 weeks ago, about the differences in our backgrounds and what that means for us. Rebecca's heart began to race. Uncertain where this was leading, I want to start a foundation, William continued. An organization that provides scholarships and mentorship for young artists who have talent but lack resources. I want you to help me design it, and eventually, I want you to run it. The proposal took Rebecca's breath away. It was so much more than financial support or charity. It was William seeing her dreams and finding a way to make them bigger and more meaningful than she had ever imagined possible. You want me to run a foundation? She asked, hardly believing what she was hearing. I want you to change lives the way you've changed mine. I want to give you the resources to help other young artists who have your talent and determination, but not your incredible strength. The promise of tomorrow as. The night grew later, and the city quieted around them. Rebecca and William talked about their future with a clarity and honesty that felt revolutionary. They discussed the challenges they would face, the public attention that would come with their relationship, and the way they would navigate the differences in their backgrounds. I don't want to change who you are, William said, as they slow danced to music playing softly from speakers hidden among the plants. Your authenticity, your determination, your ability to find beauty in struggle, those are the things I fell in love with, and I don't want to be rescued, Rebecca replied, her head resting against his chest. I want to be partnered with. I want to build something together that's bigger than what either of us could create alone. The perfect ending to a perfect beginning when William finally kissed her that night. Under the stars above Manhattan, with the city lights twinkling around them like earthbound constellations, Rebecca knew she had found something she hadn't even realized she was looking for. Not just love, but partnership. Not just romance, but purpose. The kiss was gentle and full of promise, a seal on the commitment they were making to face the future together. When they broke apart, Rebecca saw in William's eyes the same sense of wonder and possibility that she felt in her own heart. I love you. Rebecca Thompson, William said, his forehead resting against hers. I love you too. William Sterling, she replied. And in that moment, she knew that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with unexpected collisions and grow into something that changes not just to lives, but the world around them as they stood together on that rooftop. With their dreams intertwining like their fingers, Rebecca understood that the greatest masterpiece she would ever create wouldn't be painted on canvas. It would be the life they built together, stroke by careful stroke. With love as their medium and hope as their vision, the city below them hummed with the stories of millions of people. But tonight, under the vast sky above Manhattan, two hearts had found their perfect rhythm, beating in harmony with the promise of all the tomorrows yet to come.